Here we go. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Facebook Live. This is number 4 in our reactive dog series, and the question today is reactivity resolvable? For anybody who is new to our lives, my name is Laura Hunter, and this is Celeste Gagnon, and we do teach the walks that work for reactivity at Drop the Leash. So we're just going to chat today about the percentage of resolvable cases that we see. So I'm a science-based person, and I like to give people facts that are backed up by research. So I went looking the last couple of days to see if there were any scientific peer-reviewed studies anywhere out there on the internet that address the possibilities or the success in fixing or eliminating reactivity in dogs. Didn't find anything science-based to share with you. But I did fall down the rabbit hole into training world, and I found a lot of trainers out there that were quite ready and eager to guarantee that they could fix your dog's reactivity. And some of them said they could do it in as little as minutes, hours, days. So I did look a little bit deeper on that, and what I found was that there are obviously different thoughts in training world about what reactivity is. And what I did see in most of those videos actually were techniques, and often aversive techniques such as e-collars, spray bottles, prong collars, something called a pet convincer, which didn't sound really friendly to me. And all of those tools were being used to suppress the dog's behaviors. And if you have any knowledge in reading dog language, what I saw were a lot of dogs who were looking very fearful and anxious, but not necessarily happy. And certainly the reactivity, those reactive behaviors were gone, but reactivity is an emotional response. It's fear, it's frustration, it's anxiety, and just suppressing the behaviors is not going to solve that emotional issue. So there's a huge difference between resolving and suppressing. So if I want to give you a human example, if you're afraid of spiders and every time you scream when you see a spider, so somebody offers to help you, and they set you up, and they show you a spider and you scream, and they either spray you in the face with water or they give you an electric shock. Chances are that you're not going to scream the next time you see a spider, but it is not going to change your emotional response to that fearful spider. So I think it's really easy for people to get confused. And what I saw in those videos were a lot of super happy dog owners walking around in training halls or out in the world with their dogs, and they were really happy that they weren't seeing those reactive behaviors anymore. But definitely in terms of body language, they were missing the fearful body language, and I think that it's people are just looking for relief, so they're super happy that those behaviors are gone. But you suppress behaviors, it's like sticking your finger in the dike. You can plug the hole, the water won't come out, but eventually it's gonna spring a hole somewhere else, and it's gonna spring a leak, and it's gonna come out somewhere. So it is, I think, a tricky road to go down, just suppressing our dog's behaviors and not addressing the root of the issue, which is fearful or frustrated response. So having said all that, we are positive reinforcement trainers. We only use positive reinforcement methods in our program. Can you, the question we're here to answer today is, can you resolve leash reactivity with positive reinforcement methods? And my huge answer here is, well, it depends. It depends on a lot of things. So I think any trainer, any positive reinforcement trainer worth salt probably answer that same way, because there are so many variables and conditions have to be, just right. And I think that's why there aren't research studies, is because there are so many variables when you're working with dogs and humans and the environment, that I think it'd be very difficult to set up a research program on that. And what we're willing to say is that it's reducible, but we're always, the question we get all the time is, can you fix my dog? Can you get rid of this behavior? And I think both Celeste and I have to honestly say, no, we can't tell you that we're going to be able to do that. We can teach you how to manage it. We can teach you how to reduce it. We can teach you how to get through life with it in a way that is not going to impact your life as much as it is now. But we're not out to give anybody guarantees on fixing it. Right, Celeste?
Yeah, but the other thing that that you try to do a lot in all of your courses is help us understand why.
Yes.
And that goes a long way in being able to help and control and just make your life more pleasant, is understanding why this is happening.
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's huge. That is huge. And so what we're going to do today, thank you for pointing it out, because what we're going to do today is we're going to help you understand why we are saying it's reducible, but not completely 100% guaranteed to be fixable, because there's a lot of variables in here, and we're just going to go through some of those variables and kind of explain that. So if you have there's two big reasons for leash reactivity. One is fear, the other is frustration. There are others as well, but we'll stick with fear and frustration today. So anytime you're working with fear, fear is an emotional response that is very, very difficult to eradicate completely. And that's common knowledge in dog world, is that fear is common. Fear is normal in dog world because it used to be a survival tool. And, for dogs, even, that's encoded in our dogs nowadays. If you're not sure about something, maybe it's a really good idea to be afraid of it, so it doesn't, attack you, hurt you, eat you, whatever. So sometimes you do have the ability to counter condition your dog to whatever it is they're afraid of. If it's if your dog has what we call good padding, so say, your dog had an incident with another dog and they became fearful. If your dog has a good history of playing with other dogs, and, they've had a couple of months or years of experience, those good experiences, they have that padding, then yes, possibly you can get them over that one scary incident. For Celeste and I, and for a lot of those dogs out there, it's, I've got a dog who's been afraid forever, who's been afraid since birth. So we think there's a lot of genetic encoding there, and Celeste had a dog who was not exposed to good situations in the age of socialization. So when Penny was a puppy, in that socialization period, she did not have good experiences. We talked about that, I think, in the last live. So, that's why socialization is so important, because in that socialization period, you can change a dog's reactivity. You can change a dog's fearful response to other triggers, including dogs. And we have puppy groups on Saturday morning, and we've seen it happen over the past few weeks. I have puppies who came in terrified of other dogs, who are now playing with other dogs quite happily. We're actually going to post some of that up on Drop the Leash today so people can see it on the Facebook page. But in some cases, in a lot of cases, you cannot guarantee that you can completely eradicate fear in a dog. Even if it is, whether it's fear or whether it's frustration, there are other variables as well. If your dog has been practicing these behaviors, the lunging, the barking, whether it's in the backyard, out the front window, or on leash, if they've been practicing those behaviors for a long time, and those behaviors have been working for them. In the case of a fearful dog, they're able to increase distance between themselves and the scary trigger. In the case of a frustrated dog, they've been able to decrease distance. We see a lot of dogs, out there in the world dragging their owners over to meet, which is exactly why they're frustrated. They want to go meet. So, if they've been able to decrease the difference and distance and for both of them, those behaviors that they're practicing are getting better, but they're also working. So, once you've, practiced those behaviors and they're working for you, those behaviors are hard to give up. So, most of us run 6 to 8 week programs for leash reactivity. And certainly, in those programs, we can start to reduce those behaviors. Our goal in those programs is actually not really so much to fix the dogs or to help them, reduce those behaviors. It's more to teach the owners how to do it. So, because we know that in 6 weeks isn't going to do it, and they're going to have to go on out into the world themselves, and we want to make sure they know exactly what to do. So, people are going to have to continue to work after the programs are over. So, we're not going to have, well, I shouldn't say major success, because we have had some major successes in the recent sessions that we had, but we're not expecting every dog to walk out of the program and just never be reactive again. It's just not realistic at this point. And some of it depends on how much training your dog has had previously. Some dogs come to us and they've had no training, so we're actually teaching them to learn as well as change their behavior. Whereas other dogs, have been to lots of different classes. They like to learn, they like to train, they're motivated. So that's also a factor in not in terms of success, but in terms of how long it's going to take to reduce the reactivity, for sure. Anything you want to add to any of that so far, Celeste, or should I just keep on trucking here?
You're doing great.
Yada yada yada. Okay. And so the thing is, I think what can happen too is, and again, we forget dogs are some not like us, but sometimes they are, in that, if we're trying to change behaviors of our own, that we encounter stressful situations, it's very, very easy for humans to revert back to old patterns of behavior. And, that's why there's so many therapists out there in the world these days, because that's, we all struggle not to revert to those old patterns of behavior. I think dogs can do that too. I think that there are a lot of conditions under which dogs can revert back to their behaviors, and we're going to talk about those in a minute. But I also before that, I want to look at the human aspect of this whole thing, and we know, because we run a program, how huge the human is in this process. It's not just about fixing or changing your dog. The humans that are in the program have to make some massive changes as well, because ultimately the dogs are just working with the information that we give them. So it's really our responsibility. So in order to be successful, at changing your dog's emotional response, at changing their behavior towards other dogs, you've got to develop incredibly good timing. First of all, you have to learn the activities, and that's not the most difficult part of the program. We've set up a lot of our activities, a lot of the skills, a lot of the games that we do to be very, very simple for people. But what you have to develop around those is good timing. You have to be able to have really smooth mechanics with your dog, and you have to have an amazing response time. As Michael Shikashio says, sometimes you only have milliseconds to respond, and those milliseconds can mean the difference between your dog being okay in the situation or your dog just completely losing it. You also have to start getting into the habit of being environmentally aware of what's going on around you. I am sure that when Celeste takes Penny out for a walk, she is constantly scanning the environment. You don't even think about it, do you? You're just constantly scanning the environment. But you also have to divide your time between scanning the environment and focusing on your dog, because you've got to watch your dog's body language. You have to know your dog's body language. You have to be able to read it, and you have to know what it looks like in that moment before they are going to go over threshold, because that's the moment in which you want to work. And so that's a lot of stuff and that's a lot of stuff for people who aren't dog trainers. We're talking about pet owners, and I'm not denigrating pet owners, but your average pet owner, that's a lot for them to learn. We've been doing it for years, and it's easier for us because we have to teach it, and you always learn something a lot more successfully when you have to reteach it to people. It's, you hone your skills. But we're talking about pet owners who haven't done any sort of this stuff with dogs. And, we already have reactivity on both ends of the leash. There's anxiety, there's lack of confidence, there's reactivity. It's not just the dogs that are having emotional issues with this whole reactivity thing, as people as well, and that can get in the way of learning. So it's a lot. It's a lot to acquire.
Yeah, the hard thing for pet owners, and we know this and we see it, is that when you get a dog, you don't expect to have to deal with this. So not only are you not necessarily into training, but you're being thrown into training for something that you never really wanted or expected from your dog. So there's that level of frustration that comes with it. But I mean, once you learn these tools, it does increase your relationship with that dog way more than you would think could possibly be. You have a bond with that dog that is very different than your average pet dog owner. For sure. But it's hard to see that while you're going through the course. Yeah, it really is. Frustration. There's a lot of emotions that are running on the human side and the dog side, but it's hard to see past your own sometimes to absolutely, to see what needs to be done. Yeah. And then the big part of this is that you have to continue. I'm pretty sure I can speak for the entire human race at this point by saying we're not very consistent over time. It's very easy once you're out of a program and you haven't got us on Zoom every week haranguing you and reminding you, it's very easy to start to slide. We just have to look at the numbers right now on COVID to see how humans can slide. And we're not going to get into that any more than that comment, but it is easy to see. And, so I think there's a couple of issues that contribute to the slide. Part of it is it's a long-term thing, and everybody just wants it resolved and to be over. So, you do start forgetting things. People just want to go for a walk. You just want to go for a walk with your dog, and oh crap, I forgot the treats today. Oh gosh, I just ran into a dog, but I forgot my treat bag. Or, wow, someone just called me on the phone, or I'm sending a text. And in that moment of sending a text, your dog, who's been great through the entire program, sees that specific dog that's always set them off, or that specific breed or color of dog, and they just go off, and you're not expecting it because you think, well, we went through the program and we've been doing really good for 3-4 weeks, haven't seen any reactivity. Oh my gosh, there it goes, and I think, again, when we don't, when we work through the course and everybody's pretty successful and everybody's, pretty happy with their dogs and the behaviors disappear,
I think we all tend to think that the emotional responses that fuel those behaviors have also disappeared, but that's not necessarily so. And so, everybody, we often, get texts or messages from people about a month later, and they say, "Oh my God, everything was going great," and all of a sudden something happened. What's going on? Is my dog broken again? Are we back? Do we have to come back? Oh no, do we have to start all over again? No, it's just being realistic. That, it's like, I guess people take anger management courses. I don't know. Would you expect somebody to come out of an anger management course and think, wow, we've cured them of ever having a bad temper? That person will never have a bad temper again. No, we've just taught them to control it. And, humans have a lot more, I think, awareness and thought of a lot more of a thought process about controlling their emotions than dogs do. Dogs, just go ahead, there's that dog, I'm going to go off on it, whereas the human might say, well, geez, I'm supposed to be controlling my temper. So, sometimes, we're unrealistic about the extent to which our dogs have managed to, change those emotional responses,
So,
So,
Laura,
yeah,
I don't want to derail you, but
no, go ahead.
what you just said made me think of something. So people who have anger management issues or anxiety issues are often taught a list of tools that they have to go through to deal with whatever scenario they're in. So if you realize that, your anxiety level is super high, you're like in the zone, this is what you need to do, or this is what's helped you in the past to get out of that zone and back into like a neutral territory.
Yeah.
Dogs obviously can't do that. They don't go through a list in their head and say, you know what, I'm up here, I need to get down here.
Yeah.
But the tools and the games that we teach are those things.
Yes.
So it's on us to say, you know what, my dog's up here. Here's my list of tools to bring them back down to here.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly it, because I think people then think, well, the dog's fixed, the dog can control itself, but you're right, they're totally dependent on us. Still. Yeah. That's a great point. Thank you. That is a really good point. So, you've got the human component, you've got the canine component, which is they don't really understand, as Celeste said, that they're supposed to, respond that way in every situation, even if even if they are upset. And then you've got a lot of environmental influences that people don't pay attention to. So I had an interesting experience a couple of days ago, and I was walking the dogs out the back, and my dogs are usually pretty, it was Annie and Rosie, and Annie and Rosie are pretty good with squirrels. They see a squirrel in the tree, they look at it, and then they just run back to me, play the orientation game, give me some food. We saw a squirrel, that's the trigger. And then for a couple of days, Annie was going totally ballistic at squirrels. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, why are you barking and lunging at a squirrel? Like totally reactive to squirrels. And then I smacked myself upside the head, kind of thought about how Annie's last 2 weeks have been. Well, Celeste, as you know, Annie had surgery 2 weeks ago, yet again on her leg, has been totally restricted exercise. And because I've been really busy, she hasn't gotten a lot of enrichment in terms of other activities. And it's also been very difficult to give Annie any other kind of enrichment because Annie never does anything quietly. So, even if I give her scent work, she's whirling, twirling, and spinning. So, there's a perfect example of the fact that at this, hopefully this brief period in her life, she's not getting a lot of mental enrichment and stimulation. And I didn't even think about it, but that's obviously why she's going totally bonkers on squirrels these days, because she's just not getting an outlet anywhere else for all that mental energy that she's got. So, it's super important if you have reactive dogs that they do get that mental and physical enrichment through other activities. And especially, if for some reason they're not getting out as much, they're not getting as much exercise. Again, I hate to revert back to COVID, but we all found out when lockdown happened how incredibly boring and frustrating it was to spend all day in the house. And some of us got depressed, and others just our brains were banging around inside our head because we didn't have much to do. So certainly lack of enrichment is a really good environmental cause of your dog going off unexpectedly on a dog out there. My dog went off on a squirrel for the first time in her life. So and people often get back to us and they say, well, it was going great. And then the dog went off on something the other day and it just completely came out of nowhere. We have no idea why all of a sudden, my dog walked past, a couple of dogs, and then they just completely, went off on this dog. So, there's a couple of things that can happen in that situation. First of all, my question always to anybody is, well, how many dogs did your dog hold it together for on that leash before they went off on that dog? So, this is an emotionally exhausting process, I think, for your dog, learning to, disengage. Well, the way we teach it, we teach our dogs eventually to disengage from the trigger and focus back on us. And that takes a lot of mental and emotional energy from your dog. So, again, don't make the assumption that your dog's just going to go out there in the world and be totally great. With every other dog, you can now walk past 10, 15 dogs on leash and your dog's just going, oh yeah, that's fine. I think it's really tough. I think you have to build that resilience, really in a very slow and progressive manner over time. So, there's another reason, that you might see your dog just going off. And on the, even before you go out on the walk, if you find your dog is all of a sudden out of the blue being reactive on the walk, what happened before that walk? And I don't just mean what happened in the hour before the walk, what happened the day before, or what happened 2 days before the walk. We could have, you could have had I remember at Doggy Den when we were doing the games program, we had a dog that was quite reactive one Sunday morning. I think we mentioned this in another live. And I said, what happened over the weekend? Nothing. But then we started talking about specifics. Well, they had a party and they had 40 people there and there were 20 of them were kids. So, 2 days later, the dog was like, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this added trigger of being in a group of dogs because my cortisol stress levels are still up from the party two days ago. So always a good idea to go back and look at what your dog's day or past few days were, just as I kind of had to do with Annie, and I didn't even think about that right there in the spot. I had to really sit down and think about it for a bit. So it's easy for us to forget that there are a lot of things in the environment that can raise your dog's stress level that we don't necessarily think about. Certainly, weather is a big one. We've often commented down on the agility field when we've got our classes down there. Everybody says, oh my God, it was windy today. All the dogs were crazy all day. Yeah, wind and weather. If it's storms are coming, a lot of dogs notice storms. I know my dogs get really cranky in the heat. I had an issue with, again, Annie and Rosie during the summer because they get in scraps. In the 8 years together, I've gotten 4 scraps, but they just lost it one night. But we had company over. There were fireworks next door, and it was stinking hot. And I know Annie's always cranky when it's hot. So they got into a bit of a brawl when we had clients here. But, when I stopped and thought about it, I realized why that happened, and I thought maybe I should have kept them in the house. So, there's another example, any situation that's exciting. If you've got a party at your house, if you have new people coming into your house, if you have new animals coming into your house, anything that's any kind of exciting situation, I see more reactivity down on the agility field. I think sometimes, we know who the reactive dogs are. They come to the program and the owners are great with them, and they handle it really well. We've got lots of space, but I do see dogs going off down there, and people do say to me, wow, they hardly ever do this out in the world. But agility is a really high arousal situation for a lot of our dogs. So that high arousal environment just sets that reactivity off.
Nope.
So there they are. Good timing, guys. And the other thing to look at is our health issues. Again, if your dog is just tired or stressed, easy to revert back to those old patterns. If your dog has health issues, if they're not feeling well, if they're in pain. I know Celeste, Penny has some skin issues that make her cranky, right?
Yeah. When she has any kind of flare up, it shows in her mood.
Yes. Yes, we've talked about this. And there are also dogs with chronic anxiety. We both have our own dogs who have anxiety. Penny has anxiety. My Maddie dog has anxiety, and they, we're not neither of them are on meds for their anxiety. I don't think you think hers is enough to, and I tried Maddie on anxiety meds. It didn't go really well. So we're just working on, counter conditioning and training and whatnot. But our dogs are, I think, because of their anxiety is about anticipation of the fearful things, which of course brings up dog stress levels. And so I think you and I are of the opinion, Celeste, that our dogs are always going to be reactive. We're not going to take that reactivity down to zero, and either of our dogs are very realistic about that.
No.
So, I've given you a whole ton of reasons here as to why your dogs, anybody who's trying to resolve, reactivity, there may be cases where people can get it down to zero, but it's our experience that most people don't. So, I guess the question is, are you doomed to spending the rest of your life hiding in your house with your dog? No, no, because reducing it is often just fine for a lot of us. I like Emily Strong from Canine Enrichment calls it livability, not fixability. And I think that is like one of the best phrases I've ever heard, because we both have dogs who are reactive, and we both live with them quite well. If we can, give anybody hope and inspiration, we don't have a problem living with our dogs. You live in a really busy area, so I'm pretty sure every time you go out to meet a dog, out to take Penny for a walk, except for COVID, which was great, but you probably meet. Yeah, it's great for us. But well, forget the rest of the world. But you probably meet dogs all the time now that that's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dogs, and with school starting, I mean, we live near 3 different schools, so there's lots of traffic.
Yeah, yeah, and I have quite a different situation in that my dog doesn't meet other dogs outside the house, but she's completely reactive to both the other dogs in the house. So we live with leash well, not leash reactivity. We live with a reactive dog 24/7. But it's completely doable. Like I've seen you with your dog here, at the farm, and you you handle her beautifully. You manage her beautifully. You're on autopilot. Almost, it's automatic for you just to do it. It's not a big deal.
Mhm.
It's automatic for us here in the house. We are certainly always aware of the fact that if we slip up, there will be serious injury in our house, because there was, and at one point. But we just have a system here. We have a system. Everybody knows where they're supposed to go. When one dog's moving through the room, we've got gates, we've got crates. It's just a way of life. And I think, you and I, Celeste, we're realistic in that we know that our dogs aren't going to be able to do everything we always wanted to do with them in the world. Certainly Maddie's never going to go to an agility class. There are probably, we wouldn't take either of our dogs to a crowded event,
No.
for sure.
Like all those stocks or whatever
Oh yeah.
dog festivals that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. But you wouldn't even want to take me to those. But we manage them in pretty much every situation. And so we know the reality. We know our dog's limits. We live within those limits. We find other things to do. Penny comes for agility class every week, and you guys are, she loves it. She's fantastic. I've not really seen any issues at all here in agility. So there are a lot of other dog activities that dogs can get involved in. It's interesting because there is a dog agility league online. If anybody actually wants to compete in dog agility, you can actually compete online in dog agility. And I think I saw the other day that they're putting up other competitions online as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there were online rally competitions now, because that's another, easy one for dogs. And, I know people with reactive dogs. We have actually one of our students, Nancy, her dogs go to trials. And she manages quite well. And I'm not sure if Nancy does rally, but Nancy takes her dogs to a lot of stuff, and they're leash reactive, and she manages them beautifully. So, it is possible. You don't have to give up everything in the world. You just have to get to the point where it's like a muscle memory thing. You scan the environment. I think I even scan the environment when I go out with Annie and Rosie. I probably scan the environment when I go somewhere with Brett. It's just a habit that we have, just always looking. This stuff becomes muscle memory habits for us as well, if you continue to practice. And it's not that difficult, because we can't resolve it, but we can reduce it for sure. Anything you want to add to that, Celeste?
Well, no, but I like that you mentioned the other activities for dogs with reactivity, because I mean, I don't know if this is always the case, but I find that a lot of dogs that are high drive have reactivity of some kind.
Yes.
And the greatest thing for a high drive dog is that brain workout and the confidence building of some kind of dog activity.
Yes.
So this training works that way for the brain work. But then once you get to a point where you're comfortable reading your dog and letting your dog stay at a certain level, these other activities are a terrific idea to build confidence. And it does make a huge difference in how they behave as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, in addition to all those competitions that are going up on the internet, there's also a lot more online dog training available to people who want to do online training, which is, wow, that's a really subtle way of just segueing or whatever you call it, right into our program. Yeah, we do want to talk a little bit about our program. We haven't in the previous three, but we're happy to talk about it, because we want to help people with reactive dogs. And so Celeste and I just finished 2 groups with our new format. And it is an online format, and there are reasons why we went with the online. And one of the big reasons we went with online was because the other 2 formats that we tried didn't work at all. So, you know, I have a lot of space here. We have a big facility, and we thought that live online classes would be really feasible and practical here. But we found that even with the space, in-person online reactive dog classes didn't work. For the most part, because people came with not any skills, which is to be understood because they were coming to acquire skills. But when you bring dogs and people without any tools or skills, some of the reactivity was so intense that we couldn't even get the dogs into the arena. And we've got an 8,000 square foot arena. They couldn't even come into the arena. So you and I were really, we put a lot of distance on in those classes because we were having to teach people outside in one direction, outside in the other direction, in the arena, but at the opposite end. Some of them were still down the driveway. So it wasn't practical at all. And everybody was really nervous and really worried about the fact that they were coming to a live class. So our students couldn't really, you know, they had a hard time absorbing the lessons. So from there, I flipped over to private, and I also encountered logistical problems doing privates with people in that mostly the biggest issue was that if we went out to work in the world, you know, which that dogs would just show up right in front of us, you know, and like I can scan the environment a lot, but you know, and you can too, and we're really good at it, but you know that we all get nailed occasionally. You know, something shows up behind us, and every time that happened, of course your dog reacts, or the dog that I was working with reacts, and that sets your training back. So I found that, you know, some days I went out and we couldn't even find a dog, and then other days we went out and 3 dogs, you know, jumped out of the bushes at us. So I found that wasn't very very practical at all. So what I did was I put an online program together, and our program, the way it works is that all of the activities and or skills, and we borrow a lot of games from our games program for the reactivity program for walks at work. All of those are on 3 to 5 minute videos, and we've made them as simple as possible. Some have some of the activities have multi-level videos. We've broken it down so that people play it very easily. And so we have a philosophy here in that 2 things, in that you want to train for the situation, not in the situation. And certainly this applies to reactivity. And you want to play at the level at which your dog can be successful. And it's super important for people with reactive dogs that both the owner and the dog have some experience of success, because success grows confidence. And as Celeste said, you build the bond with your dog. And sometimes, you know, when you have a reactive dog, that bond gets damaged and broken. So we wanted to put together a program where people can start learning at home and have fun with their dogs and be successful and build that confidence. So the videos are there for that. And then what we do is each week we do a live Zoom, and we don't want to see your dog at the Zoom. This is just for the owners. And what we do is we teach you guys how to take those activities and games out into the world. So we answer questions, we resolve issues that anybody is having, and we give you a step-by-step plan so that you can take them out into the world in small progressive increments and be successful. And we give you, everybody gets a plan and some homework each week to work on. And anytime you have, our students have issues, or they have a question, or they ran into a problem, or they're not sure they're doing it right, we have a super simple system of how to transfer videos to us. So all you have to do is whip out your phone, take a video. It doesn't have to, be anything that's going to win at the Golden Globes. It just has to show us what's going on. And it's actually been great getting videos. A lot of our guys have sent us videos. It's been super, and we're able to help with the program. And so we've gotten good feedback. I think people have been pretty happy about, the fact that they've been able to reduce their dog's reactivity. They're able to get out for walks. This program is not just about walking. It's not just about leash reactivity. It started off as that, but we've also encountered fence frustration, and we've got plans for that now. And dogs that bark out the windows, dogs that react to people who come in the house. So we've now expanded to cover sort of all aspects of reactivity.
Yeah.
And what we did was we offered an option at the end of the program, so that if people did not feel confident, if they wanted some hands-on coaching, they could come for some optional small group lessons here at our facility under very controlled conditions, because we can control the intensity and the distance and all of that to make it successful. And I'm really happy to say that nobody felt they needed it, because I think everybody was pretty pleased with the success that they had in the program, and everybody's feeling confident enough to go out and work on it on their own in real life, which is great. I'm really happy about that. So that's what we have to offer. Whether you come to us or the other point I just want to make is that because we are online, we can actually, we are not limited by geography at all in helping people with reactivity. In fact, we have one of our students that just finished, and she was super happy about the program. She's from Kentucky. And she, Kathy, I don't know if you're listening or not. If you are, we're really happy about that. And she sent us a ton of videos, and we were able to figure out why some of the previous programs she went to didn't work just by watching those videos. So she was super happy. So, you don't have to be within anybody's, and I think this is the case with a lot of online programs now, is that nobody will be limited by geography anymore. They'll be able to choose the programs that they think are the best quality and that work the best for them. So, no matter, who, I think for any of you out there with leash reactivity, even if you choose not to come to our program, I think that leash reactivity is something that cannot be resolved by watching YouTube videos, and not be resolved just by throwing food to distract your dog. I think as again, whether it's us or somebody else, you really need to go and find a qualified trainer who understands it and who can set you up with a progressive plan. Because I think that's the important part of reducing reactivity, is to have a progressive plan. Always work at the level your dog can be successful, and train outside of the situation, and it's going to happen over time. If it is, we have not encountered excuse me, any dogs where we haven't been able to reduce the reactivity. I'm not saying there aren't dogs out there, but the one thing we haven't touched on, and I'm not, because I'm not qualified to do it, but I do know that it is another tool, is to see a vet behaviorist and put your dog on meds. So at this point, if you factor that in as well, I know of a lot of people who have put their dogs on meds and have reduced the reactivity. So I would have to say that it is totally reducible. I don't see why we can't reduce reactivity in almost every dog. I'm not going to say every dog, because again, that's a guarantee that nobody's going to give. But most dogs, it is reducible. It might not be totally resolvable, but it is reducible. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything you want to add to that?
And it reduces your stress too.
Yeah, it's reducible in humans too.
No, I was just going to add one thing to because you were talking about, when you're looking for a trainer, just be very skeptical about anybody who says they can fix your dog quickly. Because there's a lot of those, and you mentioned it at the beginning of this live, so that's just something to really think about too. A quick fix is so appealing when you're feeling desperate, but like long term, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna help you.
Yes, and I'm going to add one more thing to that, which I don't usually talk about. Find a trainer that has some education and some qualifications in this area, because this isn't about teaching sit down stay or puppy games. I think I think you need to find trainers who have gone out and gotten some education in this area. Like I've had 2 years with Jean Donaldson, and certainly the academy was heavily weighted towards fear and aggression studies. And I've taken courses with Michael Shikashio, and I'm still taking dog reactivity courses with Allie and Emily from Canine Enrichment. So, please find a qualified trainer.
And just to add to that, find a trainer who continues to learn. Like Laura, that's one thing that you do that I think is terrific. I know you're not going to say it about yourself. I'm going to say it.
We're course junkies, Celeste. You and I are.
We are. We constantly like to learn new things, but you're always on top of this topic and always learning what's new and you pick and apart different courses, and you see what's working and what's not based on what you've learned and what's science based.
Yes.
Don't just pick somebody who's taken a course, 10, 20 years ago, and then, there you go, they're a dog trainer, because things change quickly. Like science evolves, we learn more.
Yeah.
And that's important to find somebody who's keeping up to date with that.
Yes. Science-based is super important. Yeah. And you're right. You can always learn more. Like, I'm in the course I'm taking with Canine Enrichment is fantastic. I'm learning all sorts of new stuff, which is wonderful. So, we're going to put some more new cool stuff in the next one as well, in the next session. So anyway, we want to thank you guys for any of you who've hung in with us for all 4 of these. And I think they're going to still be up, all 4 of the reactivity lives. I'm going to see if Scott can even put them over on YouTube so people can see them over there as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. We will get back to you about those, any questions or any information you're looking for. I'm sure Scott will put up the link for the Walks at Work program. We have a new session that's starting in the next couple of days, actually. As soon as I can get my act together, we've got a number of people enrolled, so we're going to be starting a new session. And hopefully these 4 lives have been of use to you guys. We certainly hope so. We'll be back with more lives, maybe not on reactivity, but we might have we might go for a fun, fluffy live next week. I have some ideas about that one. So hopefully we'll see you all next week, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Thanks, Celeste.